17-year-old Chibuzo sat on the earthen floor of his family's small hut, staring at the empty space where his parents once stood. The sudden illness had swept through their village like a storm, leaving him orphaned and abandoned by distant relatives who had their own struggles. The elders, though kind in words, offered no real help. With nowhere to turn, Chibuzo knew he had to leave. The journey to Lagos was long and unforgiving. He hitched rides with traders and walked for miles on blistered feet. When he finally arrived, the city buzzed with energy, but to Chibuzo, it felt as cold and indifferent as the village that turned its back on him. He found a corner under the crumbling awning of a locked shop in Mushin and called it home. Hunger gnawed at him as days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. He washed cars for a pittance, carried heavy loads for market women, and at night, lay on the cold concrete, hoping sleep would take away the ache in his stomach. It was on one of those long, humid afternoons, while he was covered in grease at a roadside mechanic shop, that fate intervened. Mr. Adewale, a tall man with broad shoulders and a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes, stopped by to check on his car. He watched as Chibuzo worked tirelessly, wiping sweat from his brow, his eyes sharp and determined. Something about the boy's resilience struck him. "Boy," Mr. Adewale said, pulling out a handkerchief to wipe his brow. "What's your name?" "Chibuzo, sir," he replied, straightening up. "Chibuzo, would you like a job that doesn't involve oil and grime?" Mr. Adewale's voice was firm, but there was a note of kindness that Chibuzo hadn't heard in a long time. "Yes, sir." The words escaped his lips before he could catch them, and hope flickered in his chest. Within days, Chibuzo moved into the small room at the back of Mr. Adewale's compound. It was simple, but it was warm, with a proper bed and the smell of homemade food wafting through the windows. For the first time in years, Chibuzo slept without fear. He met Funmi, Mr. Adewale's daughter, who was preparing to go to university. She was lively and full of dreams, with eyes that sparkled when she laughed. Chibuzo soon became part of the family, learning trade skills at Mr. Adewale's shop and assisting him with errands. Funmi and Chibuzo developed a unique bond, marked by shared jokes and conversations about life and dreams. She would often sit in the shop, teasing him about his serious demeanor. "Chibuzo, do you ever smile?" she'd ask, poking his arm playfully. One day, while Mr. Adewale was away on business, a theft rocked the shop. A large sum of money went missing from the safe. The shock that followed was palpable. Mr. Adewale, a man known for his integrity, was furious. Trust was everything to him, and betrayal cut deep. "Chibuzo, where were you when this happened?" The question was sharp and sudden. I was at the market, sir, buying supplies," Chibuzo stammered, his heart pounding. The shop's employees murmured among themselves. Fatai, Chibuzo's friend who had joined the shop a year after him, stayed silent, his eyes darting away whenever Chibuzo looked his way. Despite Chibuzo's denial, whispers spread, and the evidence pointed squarely at him. Mr. Adewale's eyes hardened as he called the police. Days turned into weeks at the station, and Chibuzo's spirit waned. The harsh conditions, the cold floors, and the loneliness were suffocating. He replayed every moment in his mind, wondering where it had all gone wrong. On his darkest days, he thought about his parents and the warmth of their laughter, drawing strength from their memory. After 3 long months, Chibuzo was released due to lack of evidence. The air outside the station was stifling, but it felt like freedom. He went back to Mr. Adewale's house to beg for forgiveness, even though he was innocent. But Mr. Adewale, still hurt and convinced of Chibuzo's guilt, slammed the door in his face. Chibuzo gathered the last shreds of his dignity and walked away. With the little money he had saved before the ordeal, he rented a one-room apartment in the heart of Lagos and took on any job he could find. He fixed shoes, sold phone accessories, and even worked as a night guard for a warehouse. His body ached from exhaustion, but his determination burned brighter than ever. 2 years passed, and Chibuzo's efforts began to pay off. He saved enough to open a small electronic shop, which grew rapidly due to his honesty and hard work. By the time he turned 23, he was a successful businessman, known across Lagos for his integrity. One day, during a business lunch, a contact mentioned that Mr. Adewale's company was in dire straits and up for sale. Chibuzo's heart clenched. Why would the man who had once helped him be on the brink of losing everything? Without hesitation, he arranged a meeting. When Mr. Adewale walked into the boardroom, his eyes widened at the sight of Chibuzo. Time seemed to freeze. Chibuzo stood, extending his hand. "Good afternoon, sir," he said, his voice steady. "Chibuzo," Mr. Adewale whispered, his face a mixture of surprise and guilt. "I want to propose a partnership, not a takeover. Let me help you rebuild," Chibuzo said, his eyes sincere. Mr. Adewale's voice cracked as he spoke. "Why would you help me after what I did to you?" "Because you once helped me when I had nothing," Chibuzo replied. As they worked together to rebuild the business, Funmi returned home from university. Seeing Chibuzo, she felt a rush of emotions she hadn't known she harbored. Their connection rekindled, and this time, love blossomed. The truth about the stolen money came out when an ex-employee who had witnessed the incident came forward. Fatai, now a shadow of his former self, was arrested. Mr. Adewale, humbled and regretful, publicly apologized to Chibuzo for his wrongful accusation. Chibuzo's story became a beacon of hope in Lagos, a tale of resilience, forgiveness, and redemption. When he and Funmi married, it was a celebration not just of love but of second chances. And as Mr. Adewale stood beside them, his eyes glistened with pride and gratitude, knowing that true wealth came not from money, but from the relationships built and the lessons learned along the way.